Tonight we discuss how hard do I have to try? Meaning, tonight we discuss how hard do I have to try? Opening up with the initial question, why do I need to try? Why do I need to make physical efforts for God to create a miracle? A new topic, basically asking the question of how we balance, we've spoken a lot about trusting God. We spoke about we also need to do efforts on our part. So how do we incorporate both of these? How hard do you have to try? Meaning how much effort is enough effort when we're giving God all this trusting if he wants us also to try? So how do we balance those two ideas of trusting God and of the efforts of our part? There's really, when we want to create a response from God, there's really three elements we work on. One, we trust. The idea of bitachon, the idea of trusting God. Two, we add spiritually. We understand that whatever God can give us, he can give us everything, but everything, so to speak, might have a price tag of spiritual efforts on our part, doing what God wants, adding in serving him, adding in fulfilling his commandments. So that's the second coordinate. So we have trust. That's just the overarching, we trust God. Two, we add in the commandments as the currency to receive what we're asking for. And three, we have to make efforts in the human arena because God wants us to. God doesn't want us to sit at home and pray and give charity and assume that the money is going to fly into our mailbox, though it can, and God's very capable and very creative and might do it that way. God wants us to look for a job. We're not supposed to sit at home and pray and give charity and wait for us to be healed, though God can do it that way. God wants us to go to a doctor. So there's a concept of trust. There's a concept of adding in the spiritual realm. And there's a concept of doing what one needs to do physically as part of our efforts to create whatever salvation we're looking for. And we all have lots of salvations we want. Now, of those three, the first two, trusting God and adding spiritually, are much more important than the third, which is the idea of the physical efforts. Because the only reason we make physical efforts is because God tells us. Meaning, one could say, if I'm going to be very spiritual, what do I even need to do physical efforts? It's very interesting. I had this once in a class. I give on Sunday class to Noachites, to non-Jewish women that are serving God as non-Jews. And we once got into this discussion, and some of the women were very strongly saying, why do we have to go to doctors? If we trust God, that's it. We trust God, and we trust God, and we trust God. What do we need doctors for? Because God wants you to go to doctors. You don't have to overexert yourself going to doctors, but that's also part of serving God, because there's a verse. The verse says, and God will bless you in all that you do. Again, the verse is, and God will bless you in all that you do. So that means doing is part of serving God. God made this world. It's a great world. He loves it. He, so to speak, worked hard. I don't know if you can use that term by God, but he created this amazing world with these amazing rules of nature. And as much as possible, he likes following them, meaning he can make so many amazing things happen, but they're all, as much as possible, within nature, meaning none of them are going to look, ideally, none of them should look like the splitting of the sea. They should look like it. Like I was thinking now, I'm at the end of the summer, in 2 weeks, Beryl's returning to school. And when Beryl started the summer, I had no clue what in the world I was going to do with him, because whatever, just nothing worked out. He was on a wait list for one camp, wait list for another camp, and another camp was going to take him. I did my shadow, didn't work. Nothing worked out. And it all worked out. It all worked out beautifully. Better than I imagined. Great summer for him. And I was thinking today how God put a lot of pieces in place to make it work out. But they're very covert. Like, they're not in your face. Like, I was thinking, okay, one piece was this wonderful girl who's works with special needs, and like said, oh, I heard you don't have anything for him. I'm willing to work for you. I'm thinking like, whoa, I've been trying to find anyone, and here's someone who's actually skilled and experienced just falling in my lap. Like, how is this happening? And then like afterwards, I was not that day, but over the summer, well, she was supposed to work in a special needs camp, and then she decided she wasn't going to. And I was like, that's so interesting. I'm thinking she was supposed to work in a special needs camp, and she said it was very hard to get in, and she almost didn't get in, and then she got in, and then she decided she wasn't going. So what was she deciding she was doing? She was just doing some job from 4 to 7, which is how I met her, and that's it. And then she's like, oh, actually, I could work more. Actually, I could help him in the day. Like what did God put in place that she decided not to go to that special needs camp that she worked so hard to get into, and then the last minute decided she wasn't going, and then was ready and available exactly when Beryl and I needed her. That's what I call like a covert miracle. The seed didn't split, but God put things into place within the laws of nature. Now, did I make efforts? Of course I made efforts. Did my efforts create anything? No, they didn't do anything. But I have to do my part, and I have to do efforts. So it's not that your efforts are on any level, even on the physical level, going to create what you need. But we got to do things because God wants us to. So again, God's completely capable for us to sit home and pray and trust, and then just do it alone, have this girl come knocking on my door. He could have done that. But he wants to uphold nature. He made nature. He likes nature. And really, the miracles within nature, Kabbalistically, it's explained, are actually coming from an even higher source than miracles that break nature. And at the same time, God doesn't want unnecessary miracles. So if we make some effort, it could, so to speak, save the need for unnecessary miracles, just leaving God to do all the daily necessary miracles that he does. So if you understand booking a doctor's appointment, looking into various school options, sending out resumes, it's part of being a Jew who serves God. And for that reason, I trust as a Jew who serves God. For that reason, I add in charity and psalms and prayers and commandments as a Jew who serves God. And for that reason, that's also part of being a Jew who serves God. So all three, the trust, the adding spiritually, and the making physical efforts, are all part of being a Jew who serves God. And again, as we're saying, the first two, the trusting and the spiritual, are more important because that's directly spiritually doing something. But the third one is also part of what God wants. It's far lower on the totem pole, meaning if I had to prioritize. So we're saying trust, we're saying add spiritually, and we're saying do whatever you need to do in the physical realm. Like for me, I made phone calls, I networked, I applied to all these camps that said they were full, I put them on wait lists, I filled out paperwork, I did physical efforts. I also trusted, and I kept telling myself, God's going to give Beryl the best summer. This is going to be his best summer, better than what I had originally thought. That fell apart. And I added spiritually, I added charity, I added psalms. So I did all three. Of the three, the trusting and the adding spiritually are much more important. The physical efforts is just to give God an ability not to break nature if he so chooses. But I didn't put as much effort there because the main effort is trusting and adding, as I did spiritually, by adding psalms, tehillim, and charity. So if there would be a conflict between what I'm doing spiritually and what I'm doing physically, always the spiritual is more important. Always the spiritual should be dominant. Always, there shouldn't even be a struggle in my head. If it's a struggle, I already don't have that full faith. If I have that full faith, it's no struggle. The spiritual always takes precedence over the physical. It says in the Mishnah that the Jewish farmer believes in God and plants. He believes in God and he plants. That's what it says in Mishnah and Jewish law about a Jewish farmer. So the question is, every farmer plants. A non-Jew could plant. Today, a machine can plant. The wind could blow a seed into the earth, then it could germinate. What do we mean this Jewish farmer believes in God and plants? If he doesn't believe in God, the seed's not going to grow? What does that mean? But this is explained that this is saying how a Jew, a Jewish farmer, is supposed to operate. He's planting, like his non-Jew down the street, like the machines owned by others, like the wind, he's planting. But for him, the reason he's willing to waste good food, seeds, and put them in the ground is because he believes in God. Why is he putting food in the ground to rot? Why is he taking seeds and letting it rot in the ground? He's doing it because he believes in God, that this seed will sprout, that this seed will produce much more food. Now, why for that do you need belief in God? The person that doesn't believe in God also could put a seed in the ground and also it will germinate, it will rot, it will sprout. Why do you need belief in God to put a seed in the ground? But that's the point. We don't view it as, well, that's just what happens. Nature. We view every seed sprouting as divine intervention on my behalf. And that's how I'm supposed to look at my entire life. Not like, well, I'm eating more healthy, I'm exercising, I'm losing weight. I'm taking my child to a therapist, so she's behaving better. I went to a good school, I got a good degree, so of course I have a great job. We don't believe in any of that. There's no, of course, I have a good degree, I have a good job. Of course, I'm going to a doctor, I get better. Of course, I'm exercising, I'm healthier. We don't believe in any of that. Every detail is from God. Bella, do you have a question?
No, it's not a question. It's what I'm saying. I also don't believe now time doctors too. I believe all nature. And I'm trying to, if something I need, I'm just trying to do some nature medicine.
And you find that helps you more.
Yes, some nature. Yeah.
I know you've done a lot for your health, and I'm glad that you found what works for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it doesn't make a difference if you're going to go the route of doctors and traditional medicine. You're going to go the route of natural. When you're doing natural, do natural with the belief that God wants you to be healthy. And since He wants you to be healthy, these natural techniques are working. God wants you to be healthy. And that's why whatever you're doing is helping. And that's the point. So are we supposed to not do something? No, do. But do with a very strong belief that God wants me to be healthy. God wants me to earn money. And that's how I know that whatever I'm going to end up doing to earn money, God's going to make it work. God wants me to have good relationships with my children. So I'm going to obviously have to do my part and cultivate them. But God's going to help make it work. God wants me to have a good relationship with my spouse. I have to do my part. I can't sit back and say, okay, God, you want me to have a good relationship with my spouse, so make it happen. I have to do my part, but I'm doing my part. God's going to make it work. So basically, we have three questions. How much is too little physical efforts? How much is too much physical efforts? And what's precisely the right amount? You know, it's too big, it's too little, it's the right amount. So what's too much? We'll start with that first. That's simple. What's too little? That's also simple. And then we'll try to figure out the hardest thing to really figure out, what's exactly the right amount. So too much. It's very simple. Too much physical efforts is when you over-prioritize. When over-prioritizing means when it takes up more space than your spiritual efforts. When you believe, the more you try, the more you'll succeed. If I go to enough doctors, there'll be a cure. If I get enough training, I'll be marketable. I'll make a good living. When you're making the efforts and they make you forget that it's God and only God, and the efforts are only because He wants them as well. So we're going to take Bella as our example because she just spoke. So if Bella starts believing me, I'm the best doctor, or or nature is the best doctor, then she lost it. Then she did too much. It doesn't make a difference how much she did. She could do very little, but she did too much because her headspace is wrong. When Bella says, God's the doctor, and this is the means I'm giving him to give me health, and through these natural means, God, the doctor, is going to give me health, then she's in a good space. So that's always how we cross-check ourselves. Am I doing too much? Yes, if I over-prioritize. If I make it more important than any of the spiritual means. Because if I do, that means I don't really believe that God's the healer. I really believe it's nature. I don't really believe that my finances come from God. I believe it comes from my job. I don't believe that my relationships are being helped by God. I believe it's just based on my efforts and my therapist and my counselors and my life coach. So if I believe it's God, I'm always going to put more effort for God than for anything else. Once I put more effort for other things, once I over-prioritize, it's an indication I'm not really believing it's God. So that's too much effort. So it's not an amount, and it's a proportion of the physical efforts to the spiritual efforts. You always want the spiritual to be more the exertion than the physical. So that's too much effort. What's too little effort? Well, too little effort is what I'm not doing. When I say, I trust God, he doesn't need my efforts, he's completely capable, like I went to the other extreme. In the too much effort, I'm like, well, of course I believe in God, but he needs a lot of help from my part, right? So I got to do, and I got to run, and I got to run, and another doctor, and another doctor, and another, and another, and another, whatever I'm searching for. I mean, I believe in God, but God helps men who help themselves. So let me push and push and push and push. Well, then obviously my belief in God is a little weak. But if conversely, I just say, I trust God completely. It sounds very holy. It is holy. It's holy. I trust God completely. I'm not doing anything in the physical realm. I'm serving God, and he will take care of it. It is holy, but he wants your participation in the process. As we said before, he does not want to make unnecessary miracles. So what would happen if a person behaved this way? If a person trusts God completely and doesn't do anything in the physical realm, God will create the miracle for them. They deserve the miracle. They trust completely. Trust creates reality. They're adding spiritually. That creates a spiritual reality. They will get their miracle. But God won't be happy that you forced his hand unnecessarily. You know, like these, and there's stories of such people who like were very ill and totally didn't go to doctors and only trusted God and added spiritually, and they had a miraculous cure. There are real people that do that. So it's not impossible. And it shows a very high level spiritual relationship, but it's not what God wants, because he actually wants you to work in the physical.